Islam, 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 and welcome to MHHS-Eyes Wide Open. This is your host, Anita Ill, along with my co-host, Ms. Raheem Olive Ill, who hasn't pressed one. There he is.
Peace and love. Pardon me, Anita. That was my fault. But good day, good evening, good night. Peace and love to all Moors. Indeed.
Yes. And also RVBey.
Islam, peace and love to all.
Islam and Cujo Adwa L.
Islam, Moors, peace and love to the panel.
Islam. Before we get into our broadcast, I just want to wish everyone a happy summer solstice.
Happy summer
solstice is officially here. Happy summer solstice to
Indeed.
everyone.
Same to you all. Same to everybody. For sure.
Yes.
Oh, and on that note, not to cut your wisdom, but again, Cujo, that was a great demonstration that the Canaan Moors did, that you all did for the summer solstice as well. It was a perfect example of how to make that celebration tangible. And we definitely, everybody knows, it's on YouTube or whatnot, but we definitely put the link on the homepage of RVBey Publications as well. For sure, because that was like perfect example again of how to utilize that energy and timing. So acknowledgement to that as well. Islam.
Yeah, and just to take it a little bit further, to keep in mind that was all Moorish History Club, Moorish Culture Club.
Wow.
But the members of the temple, some of the members in the temple took it on themselves to say that, they're going to take control of whatever events that we have or anything like that. So that was those Moors, headed by Sister Mother Mocha and Brother Omar.
All right.
So it was all them, you know what I mean? Making sure that we have these celebrations every gate, just to give our honors, and also like we were talking about in this one, or that Brother Omar was breaking down, to make sure that we utilize the energy on the days, because the colonizer can't really utilize the days, because that'll give away what they're doing. But they have to utilize around the days. But since it's our stuff, we gotta every time these days come up, everybody everywhere that says they're Moorish American should have something relative to honoring the gates on the day of, opposed to waiting.
Agreed.
I use the floor. I know we didn't even get through the intro yet.
But that's all right. It's all relative. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah.
All righty. Moving on. We'd like to let our internet listeners know the chat room is open. Big shout out to our family listening near Great Britain, near South Africa, near Japan, near the Netherlands, Islam, Brother Albert, near the Philippines, near Mexico, near Venezuela, near Cuba, and all. Big shout out to family that we have yet to connect with. Thank you so much for listening, joining in, and lending us your energy. Big shout out to our callers. Thank you so much for calling in, filling up the phone lines before the broadcast even begins. Thank you so much for joining us, learning, sharing, growing together as we all uplift fallen humanity. Thank you so much. Before we get started, we always do a public announcement of those Moors who have been kidnapped and are being held as hostage by these municipal corporation employees. They're being held hostage for a demand of income. and or a fraudulent payment of income via federal funding. All right? So more on that to come. So what we do is we acknowledge our family that has been kidnapped and is being held hostage, and we start off with our sister RVBey, who was kidnapped via the employee and of Memphis and Shelby Corporation. That was a joint venture under the purview of the Union State of Tennessee. We have Daoud Ill under the Union State of Arkansas, Amir Mosley Ill, and Kusura Kushbe under the purview of Missouri, Asar Fatah Amin Bey under the purview of Ohio, Jeremy Taylor Ill, Terry Thorne Bay, Jamie Cal Brooks Bay, Joseph Kamaday Ill, Kush Amir Bunch Ill, Emmanuel Billings Bay, Yasin Khalid Kalamin Ill, Curry Bay, all under the purview of North Carolina, Noble Crisco Ill, under the purview of New Jersey, Messiah Aziz Ill and Crystal Ill, both kidnapped through joint venture between the employees of Mercer, Freehold, and Trenton Corporation under the purview of New Jersey. We're still waiting on an update regarding Patricia Bay's infant baby kidnapped by the Atlantic Corporation under the purview of New Jersey. Eldridge Taron Fisher Ill and Marquise Devillon Ill under the purview of Indiana, Solomon Ill Bay and Mumi Abu Bay under the purview of Texas, William Barrett Ill under the purview of Virginia, Omani Abidwil Ill, kidnapped by the employees of the Chesapeake Corporation under the purview of Virginia, Shay Ray Bay under the purview of West Virginia, Thomas Lee Bay under the purview of California, and Victor Eduardo Avaya Juarez Ill, kidnapped by the employees of the Harlem Corporation under the purview of Georgia. Those are the Moors that have been kidnapped and are being held hostage. If you have a family member or another Moorish family member, maybe not of your immediate family, that you would like added to this list, please send their free national appellation along with the municipal corporation that kidnapped them, and the union state that is in that corporation is in purview to MHHS-Eyes Wide Open at gmail.com. All right, so on to the subject matter of this broadcast. This is in conjunction with the Final Call series, and it is entitled, Are You a Moor National or a Member of the United States of America Bound by Allegiance? A lot of people do not recognize that on this land we have two nations that are supposed to be coexisting together. And you have the Moor Nationals, and then you have those members of the United States of America, which, by the way, those members can only be modern Europeans. They cannot be anyone of African descent. These two groups, these two nations, they are protected people under the American Constitution of 1791, which is an international document. Change between the two nations and any nation. All right? Because this land is the land of the free. Anyone could come here and live in peace and harmony, and they are not supposed to be harassed. They're not supposed to be stalked. They're most definitely not supposed to be used to generate revenue, which is human trafficking. All right? And it's a major atrocity that you have the United States Justice Department putting out a report by Ferguson Corporation, 105 pages. And in this document, they speak of this $2.5 million that they collect every year on human trafficking. And no one has made the connection. No one. And you know what? It is up to the people to direct these, politicians and these public servants. So when there is an issue between, or I should say, whichever you are, whether you are a Moor National or you are a member of the United States of America, when the employees of the municipal corporation attempts to violate your unalienable, constitutionally secured liberties, the issue becomes a federal question. And I have had an experience that I will talk about, but not at this time because I'm still going through it, but I have learned one most valuable lesson, and that is, people hear me when I say this, if you need to go into the Black Law 4th edition dictionary, you need to go and look up, study, write down, copy and paste down the entire definition for liberty. You can even go to the MHHS-Eyes Wide Open Facebook page, because I believe we posted it up there when we were talking about liberties. But you need to go there and you need to look at all that liberties entail. All that liberties entail. Then you have to know that the American Constitution makes sure that your liberties are not liened. That's why they are called unalienable and inalienable. And if you look up inalienable, it refers you to unalienable. Unalienable means that which cannot be bought, sold, or transferred. So, for example, when it comes to this series that we started off, where it was entitled "What to Do When DCF Comes Knocking on Your Door," if they are violating your liberties in any way, shape, or form, that is a constitutional violation. If they force their way into your home, that is a violation of your liberty. If they steal your property, that is a violation of your liberty. If they interfere in your family business, that is a violation of your liberty. If they make it so that you cannot have just the basic necessities of life, that is a violation of your liberty. And when your liberties are violated, that becomes a federal question. It is a federal question because under federal jurisdiction, questions regarding the liberties of the people must be answered. Must. They're supposed to be answered within the state because the states are constitutionally authorized. Their authority comes from the states. Authority comes from that American Constitution. Really, they're supposed to be protecting the people, but if we look around, we find that the states are not protecting the people. They may not be the ones doing the attacking, but they are certainly turning a blind eye. And there's a case law that says that when there is an obligation to speak and you remain silent, that is treason.
And it's fraud.
So if we don't, right, it's fraud.
So
and
that's also,
treason.
if you look up the definition of fraud, it also says that, when you remain silent, and silence also, I have it on the site, but yeah, that also, that silence when you have a duty to speak is fraud. And that's why it's fraud, because you have that duty to speak. But, when you think of it that way, and when we really, accept what's being said here and show the actual, like I said, if they look up fraud, they'll see it. It's a very interesting term with that in terms of what silence means, that it does mean that. But when you think about it, why should they say anything when none of the natural people seem to give it a good god darn about their freedoms and their liberties? It's an open door. It's an open door to violate. It's an open door to steal. It's an open flow of self-activity that has engulfed most of the minds of of man today, that we're uplifting out of. So it's an open door because why, when you think you brought them into, our ancestors brought them into protection of the government, right, into the constitutional fold to protect them and us and everyone. And then, and then they turn around and violate that because the same people who are supposed to be the ones that know law, that enforce law, really the bays, enforcing the law, they're acting ignorant. They're acting like totally like, hey, I wouldn't want them to be in charge. I would be thinking in my mind to stay away, to be in any way implementing or exercising or whatever, anything that has to do with the benefit, welfare, peace, or whatever of myself, my family. They can't even do it on their own family. So when we look at it from that perspective, even though we say, they have this duty, why should they put out? I mean, it's weird, right? Because they have that obligation. But I guess what happens is if we can let it go so long for generations, having our families raped and violated like this, hey, it is what it is. So let's now what, So it's not like who made the violation first, who made the violation second. Instead, it is what it is. But why should they uphold it when they can steal everything that actually is your ancestral inheritance by lineal descendants that was already protected, was already taken care of to be protected for you, and you don't know it, nor do you exercise, nor do you act like you know it. And then you turn around and ask them, Master, can I please have this? Master, it's like, whoa, something's wrong with this. Now, someone could have engineered that, social engineering, for it to be like that, or to let that seed grow, and it has grown. But it doesn't mean it's a weed, really. It's not flower. It's not anything that's seed bearing or that's good for you. So it has occurred. It has happened. Now what? Because what we're looking for to put it back in place, here's the thing. It's already existent and is in place. So now, not only do you need to make your claims and act like you know or be what you know for yourself, you got to be that for the universe and for whoever you call your God, whatever like that, because we have to show our own selves approved, before we can demand that somebody else treat us in a way in which was already established. When we don't treat each other in that way, nor do we seem to care or to have knowledge of it. And again, it doesn't matter that it was engineered for us not to. That's beside the point. What we're looking for already exists. It is the enforcement of law. And everybody talks about, this, but no one seems to know that the law protects liberties. And as you said, first of all, they don't know the liberties, they don't know the law, but they are bays with law and going to be enforcers of the law. It makes no sense. Mm-hmm. So I would keep raping too if that was my duty, if that was my job, to see how much I could take from someone. Every time they turn their head the wrong way, I'm coming through the back door and taking something else. Because as you said, it's just the truth. Because it's gotten good like that to them. As you said, there's some other things and strategies and facts and stuff, but when you share them, you got to really be able to receive them. I understand why it's a difficult. I mean, we know it's a difficult thing, but it's really not difficult if we would accept the truths. Just accept them, Anyway, I know I went on with that. I just basically wanted to say, why should they care if we don't? If we want to call them names and say that they're this and they're thieves and all that, like that, then what about looking at ourselves and saying, well, why aren't you enforcing that which protects you and then expecting someone else to do it? It doesn't make sense.
Islam. And we were talking about in class earlier too about people really taking their time to detox the nigger mentality. Detox the African mentality, to detox the Egyptian mentality, to detox the whatever ramp you use to get to more science.
Mhm.
Like there has to be a detox of those concepts.
Mhm.
Like
I hear you.
You can't come into this level of information with baggage.
That's right. That's right.
You have to come into this naked.
Yeah.
Not even a boot or underwear.
A total exorcism in the back so you can get the baptism, right?
Complete, because I think that's where a lot of people, it's like, we say divine and national movement, and then you take this information as it's just info. You're going to injure yourself because it's not just info.
That's right.
There's some things that are said that are mantras and stuff like that. You say the wrong thing at the wrong time, you hex yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is really, it's really yours. Like it's not something that, like even when you look at like you think in the mind of a greedy individual, right? They would take all those information that's on the RVBey site, not put out the site, but put out 50 books. And say, do it for the people. Whereas you have
copy the book?
No, not even copy. They just not even give a website.
I got you.
They just put out information. You know what I mean? Whereas this is so much yours. Like when we say go on RVBey for a year, you know how much information you're gonna get in a year off that website?
Mm-hmm.
It's so many pages upon like you click something and it opens, and then you click something and it opens. You know how much of that you do on the site on top of seeing something and then opening some other page to go check that out and all that. But that information was never sold to you. The information was never, you never got no deal. You had to make no deal for it. You didn't have to prove yourself worthy of anything like that. You didn't have to have some special degree to come and get the information. It's yours. That is your information that you never knew about. So why not know it? It's yours. Mm-hmm. And then once you have that mindset that Moorish nationality is your birthright, like it's yours. It's not. Well, I heard Ms. say so. Ms. gave me whatever. Like it's not. That's not what it is.
That's right.
You have to embrace this as yours. It's the reclaiming of your birthright. Only you can do. Someone can't reclaim your birthright for you.
Nope.
And depending on where you are, when you reclaim your birthright would depend on where you go with it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got a ticket yesterday and then came into birthrights today, and tomorrow you want to use birthrights fight ticket, you're probably not going to get too far with this.
Nope.
Your stuff is going to be done next week. You're going to be off Moorish nationality, and you're going to be on some other free ride.
That's right. Free ride. You got that right. Valid.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas the individual who studies for a year, who said, you know what, let me just slow down a little bit, because even if they want to front on themselves and say that people get arrested and stuff like that, so I don't want to go out there and do nothing too crazy. Let me just chill for a little bit and take in this information from this site. Mm-hmm. And that individual, when they start exercising their birthright, they wouldn't even know that they're exercising it, because it's going to be natural to them.
Right.
Word. They wouldn't even know that. They wouldn't even know that they're being Moors.
Yeah, because you become what you know, right? That's what it is. You can't be. You can only be what you know. Me and Liz talked about that earlier. And I just wanted to say, I don't want to cut you. I want you to say what you're saying, but and the prophet even said himself. He said, "Look, come to you to the truth about what? your. You didn't say his. This is your nationality and your birthright. Now, what more is that? What more can you say to that? It's your stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And if I could just add on, that's absolutely the truth. And I think one of the things that happens is some people get the information and feel as though, like Noble Drew Ali, because you got to look at it like this. It is a fact that we were Moors before Noble Drew Ali was born, but he was born with a mission to remind us.
That's right.
And I think a lot of people act like his work was irrelevant when he was telling you, you know, like he was telling you, and you can look at any linear group, they'll tell you that the Noble Drew Ali laid a blueprint for resistance. But, you know, what he left for us was so, I don't even know what to call it. It was salvation. It was definitely salvation. But in correlation to what Cujo was saying about this is yours. You know, if you caught a ticket last week and you have no interest in you know, taking your position, you're looking for an attorney type of thing, like, that's not how this works. That's not how birthright works, though, you know, we are all obligated to assist for whatever information we can provide. But I say that in correlation with the detoxification when Noble Drew Ali said, you know, if you're looking for your savior, look within. It's self, right? So I think if people don't really get that concept right there, and that is not to say that we don't need help. That is not to say that we can't get assistance in doing things. You know, you have people who have different things that they could bring to the table as far as helping each other out. But the responsibility, you know, you can't just X that out. Like, it doesn't matter, and, you know, he was just saying that for no reason. Like, no, there's a self-responsibility level that goes with this because, as you said, it's your birthright. And without understanding that it's yours, you know, or defending or protecting it in the same manner, then I think a lot of people go off key because what happens is people start looking like, oh, did the government recognize this, that, and the third?
Yeah.
Listen, we have a long list of liberators that the so-called government. Now, we could go into that, and I think the conversation will go there. But as far as the U.S. Corporation and the curators and the administrators that operate it, you know, that's really not government. But I have to say that there's a long list of liberators that they don't recognize, you know, and you could just do the contrast of why certain people don't have recognition days, but others do. And that stops nothing of the Moorish legacy because they did or didn't recognize certain liberators or, you know, people who were standing on their nationality and birthright. So when we take the look and really realize that, you know, it's not necessarily about their recognition, though everybody wants to be recognized, I understand that. It's not necessarily about being adversaries either. You know, peace is a major element for progress at the same time. But I look at it in a sense, whereas I know for a fact we are who our foremothers and forefathers are. And there's a certain element of tyranny, abuse, and things of that nature that these modern Europeans, these pale-skinned monsters, and that's not to say all of them are bad people, speaking from the lawful context of not having inheritable blood on the American soil, not biased, not racist. It has nothing to do with predilections. But what I'm saying is that our remedy is not necessarily in them. And when we look back that we are who our foremothers and forefathers were, that we did have the empire global, I think that certain things, and maybe you could speak to the tune of this, like when we were speaking of turning the blind, like how they're turning the blind eye, and that their family is their government and government is family, etc. Same thing applies to us, to Moors, you know. And when we look back, just in because this is like the main point that they try to emphasize with Moors in general history is, you know, starting in Spain. So if we just took a look right there, right, Moors was running out Andalusia as documented, you know, how they tell it, for 800 years, right, 700, 800 years. And I'm like, that's a way longer reign than the Europeans even been here on American soil. So, I mean, in the chronology of a timeline, what's happening now, as far as them being derelicts, as far as them, you know, turning a blind eye and being in the conspiracy, being in the racketeering and things of that nature, I'm not saying that's everything we did, but basically we posted up and had rule. And it's kind of like the same thing we see with the Europeans today, because from that situation, you have a kickoff of everything relative to the modern Europeans today, even with, you know, the whole year 1492 and things of that nature, when the Spanish Armada sanctioned, you know, Colombo and some others to come to the West because they couldn't get permission from others to basically raid or invade the Americas. They got it from the Spanish because there was so much tension between Moors and the Spaniards, or the area called Andalusia, the pale skin nations that was dwelling in that area at that particular time. So I see it as, you know, is that anything to do, does that have anything, do you think that has anything to do with what we're going through now? When you compare the timeline of the reign of the Moors in Spain and in the Europeans, modern Europeans, invasion of America, do you think there's any correlation in that when we remove ourselves in a certain aspect from looking at the tyranny, from looking at the suffering, not that that's something we're ignoring, but when you compare the timelines, it's really not that long they've been really reigning. I don't even want to say reigning, but just in a position of fiend power. You know what I mean? Because they're like, well, instead of telling you they don't care that this person did this to you, or, you know, these people did this, they'll just ignore you, which is like one of the most rudest things, if you ask me. So I'm just saying, when you compare timelines, how long do you think this could go on? And chronology, do you really think it's been that long? That's just what I had in mind. Because today, when we look at this so-called judicial system, these are the lineal descendants of these invaders, of an extensive history between Moors and Euros. So I was just thinking that. I didn't want to take the conversation left field, but in light of this being divine and national and karma and things of that nature, what have you to say on that, family? Huh?
They're not your family. Just add the fact that, and they're not your family. They're the descendants of those same invaders, and they ain't your family. Are not your family. But
right.
Anyway, that's what I got to say. Anybody else got a comment on that?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I would just add that keep in mind that when you look at the chronology, you also have to look at what type of relation did the Moors and Europeans have, pale Europeans have. Like, what was the relationship like? Because Europeans who I talk to, they don't got nothing but honors for the Moors.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not speaking to me from the Moors in a perspective of we enslaved them, or that they were right for kicking us out of Spain, and that they don't speak from that perspective.
Right.
They speak from the perspective of I'm so pleased to know that you know you're a Moor.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
that's it.
Absolutely.
Which if we go back to the chronology again, if
mm-hmm.
that's the case, then that means nothing stopped in 1492.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's still continuing, because right now, in 2016, there's Moors going into foreign jurisdictions called courts and doing the same thing that sundry free Moors did.
Absolutely.
And getting everything dismissed. No, nothing. And then people are going to say, we're not the Moors of back then. We're them.
Absolutely.
We're them now. So there's no 1492 cutoff, and then
right. Like okay, like they say, oh, in 14, yeah, you got to be brought back into the Constitution because you're a 14th Amendment. That's some bull crap right there, right?
Right, and then in the chronology now, you have that point where these individuals known as Moors are known as something else, but not all of them, only some of them.
Mhm.
And now that starts. That's its own history now.
Right.
Which when we put that to the chronology, that's fetus compared to everybody else.
Mhm.
As far as people who are classifying themselves as something, the people who classify themselves as black, they're like 100 years old yet.
They're like what? My fault, bro.
They're not even 100 years old.
Right.
Oh yeah, real facts.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
The Europeans, they can at least trace themselves back to 1,000 or something like that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you have, people who aren't even on the planet anymore that used to be here.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That they're way older than black people, but then these modern concept, minuscule-minded people are going to try to tie themselves to that ancient history, which they can't do, which is why Noble Drew Ali came to tie us back to that ancient history.
Exactly.
So
now
when we present ourselves as Moors, because our biggest problem is the Negro problem,
right?
Which includes Negro, includes blacks, African American, whoever colored, light skin, wherever they identify, call themselves the fictions.
Mm-hmm.
All the fictions. Right? Now, if they would have just let Noble Drew Ali and Marcus Garvey unite, there would have been no NOI.
That's right too.
There would have been no any of these organizations that started in 1930 that are still around today.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
They all started.
There would have been none of those. And then don't forget, Garvey had manufacturing companies. He had ships and stuff like that. And then Noble Drew Ali had manufacturing companies, fisheries and stuff like that. Everything was already checkmate.
Mhm.
And here we are on Blog Talk talking about federal question. Like these guys have jurisdiction.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the only reason that they're still around is because of Negro, black, colored people, and the black sellout leaders.
Yeah.
That's the only reason they're still around. These people have already yielded to the Moors. We have enough Moors that we can put on the record. I don't care about the ones who got arrested or got kidnapped or whatever. I'm talking about the ones who went in there and stood on their square and they have nothing now. And they're free now to do whatever it is they want. Driving no license, no insurance, who cares? They don't even get stopped.
Mm-hmm.
They just go build whatever that they want to go build, and then they build that, and that's theirs.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody has to be on the mindset that it's your birthright. But remember, Noble Ali came and he gave us 5 principles, so you can't get crazy. Or, yeah, it's my birthright, and we're going to run out here and start, you know what I mean, jumping on cars and stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. We got principles. We got standards that we got to uphold because this is our ancestor stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know, these people had mosques that they were using as schools to teach people.
Mhm.
Nobody was no worry about no terrorists and ISIS and all that stuff when the Moors were running shit.
Yeah, and isn't it funny how they try to switch our legacy though? Whereas the Christians were the these was terrorists like you wouldn't imagine. And now you have them on TV talking about Muslims every chance they get. You know, they're trying to they switch places, identities, stories.
Yeah.
So much. You know what I mean? That it's confusing. Like they switch it up so much. So now they try to make it seem as if Muslims or Muslims or Moors are terrorists. When you check the real history of Christianity, these people are the ninth power, and again, I gotta give all upright people their just due. I'm not saying everybody is like that, but at the same time, sometimes you can't take chances on assumptions. So, for supporting that, it's just crazy, But yeah, that's how they do, man. They switch stories. I know we was on the note of the federal question, but may I add on something real quick since we were talking about them switching stories and trading places real quick. I would just like to add on. This is from a book by Mason. It's called Bacon's Secret Disclosed. And I'll just read an excerpt from page 138 and 139. It says, but at the end of the 1629 edition, they're talking about books, law courts, etc., heresy and things of that nature, astrology, all of these things. It says, but at the end of the 1629 edition, there is inserted a key by which we are informed that under Greek and fanciful names, certain well-known personages are intended. Thus, Argenis is the daughter of the King of France, and in the end, wife of Polyarchus, Henry IV. So it is not difficult to identify her as Margaret of Valios. Melinda is Henry II or III of France. Polyarchus is Henry IV of France. Radior Baines is Philip II of Spain. Selenisa is Catherine de Medici. Hyacinthi is Queen Elizabeth. Arcambratus or Hiempsal is her son. Nicopompus is the author, and so on through a long list of minor characters. Now check this out. It says, and under fanciful names, various countries are intended. Thus, Sicily is France. Sardinia is Spain. Mauritania is England, and the Moors are the English. Gallia is Navarre, and so on. Now, I know in all actual fact we're not English, but they're talking about this particular writer.
They're talking about the British.
Yeah.
Crazy.
How they were switching, different place appellations to codify the truth. And when I read this, again, family, you might be able to Google this. It's called Bacon Secrets Disclosed, page 138, 139. When I read this particular part, when it was alleging that Mauritania is England and the Moors are the English because they were codifying, switching the story up, it made me think of the exotic map that was in the King Alfred plan, and I was like, oh, shit. You know what I mean? So I say that to say that there's much evidence of them switching up and replacing the Moorish legacy with modern European history or modern European history codifying the Moorish story. So I just wanted to make that fact very clear. Bacon's Secret Disclosed, and they're talking about somebody named John Barclay. So I just wanted to make that clear, and I don't want to get off the subject, but that was relative to what we were saying at the time. Islam.
That's real.
If there's not another comment about that, just before we move on, that's real interesting what you did, how they replaced the places. But we wanted to qualify when they said English. We want to be real clear. And you can look this up yourself, but you must look it up in the Oxford Dictionary. Because remember, Webster's and things like that, that's general stuff. But Oxford is definitely for scholars. And in it, it gives the definition of Englishmen. And it says in it that we are but hybrids. So when they say England, they're really talking about the British, which are what we call the brutish Moors. I just wanted to make that because England really comes from the land of Angles. You know, all of it comes from our stuff. Nothing comes from their stuff. So you can look that up yourself instead of believing us. Go look it up.
Yeah, and you know what? That's so important. My fault not to get off of that. But indeed, the English are hybrids, and it kind of goes back to what CMBey was saying, right? Because this is like one of the main things we really, really have to comprehend, being Moors of the Maghreb, lineal descendants of the natural people, is that when they operate, you know, in this felonious type of fashion and, you know, this ignoring type of fashion, and things of that nature, that, you know, they're operating on what is known as English law. But at the same time, CMBey was going into this as far as there was a time, because, you know, the British are really Moors. The British are Moors. The Saxons was a derivative of Saracen, and these are all Moors. But the English were the hybrids. So these was the Europeans, the cave-dwelling Europeans, who also came up from Rome up into Britain and overthrew the Moors there to an extent. So being as though these are lineal descendants of modern Europeans, English people, and remind you, they don't hide it. When they came and they colonized, you know, the mid-Atlantic region of North America, that people with a modern mind state, they say, oh yeah, that's up north. Like speaking of like so-called Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maine, these different place names. What they called it collectively was New England, and that should be the biggest indicator to you that these are colonists. They're not dealing like. They're dealing with English customs laws and things of that nature. Now, mind you, they had to accept the law of the American land, and there's been multiple conflicts with the Iroquois, which are all Moors. Let's keep it in context. But English is a fraud in itself, you know, because as CMBey was saying, there was a time where English didn't even exist. The England didn't even exist, so there couldn't have been an English nation. So I just would like to read this real quick so we can stay on the subject as well, right? Because there's a difference. There's a clear difference between American law and English law though you might see people suffer from the effects of English law in operation, perfect example, they have chancery courts, superior courts, and in all of these venues, they're claiming English titles of nobility, esquire, things of that nature. And it's not just the person who's claiming to be an attorney. You're talking about those who are claiming to be trial court administrators. You do a little bit of history on the Euro or whoever's claiming to be judge. They somehow got that title of esquire attached to them in their journey of doing whatever it is they do. But just real quick, from the Black's Law Dictionary, the definition of, and you could turn to page 1293, the definition of per legem terrae is by the law of the land, by due process of law, and the case law is U.S. v. Kendall, 26 Federal Case, 748, Appeal of Irvine. And then you have the definition, because we just said per legem terrae, which means by the law of the land. Terrae, terrain, terra, tierra, all of this means land or earth. So legem, that's law. So per legem terrae is by the law of the land, by due process of law. And the definition of per legem Anglia is Latin, and it means by the law of England, by the courtesy. We spoke last week of giving these people courtesy titles when you don't know who you are, and you allege that they're American, and you allege that they're government, and you allege that they're authority because of what you think you know, but what you really don't know. So always keep in mind the contrast between per legem terrae and per legem Anglia, because the terrae or the terrain or the tierra, the land, and I'm speaking for Moors in the Americas, and I love Moors everywhere, but here, this is one of the abuses that we suffer and really don't know that that's what's going on, is that they're operating in English law, and we're holding them to the standard of American law because they took an oath, and we have the right to take them on their word and their obligation. But in the background, this is what they're forcing on the people, or not even forcing, but operating with, is English law, which we can't even attribute English law to Britain. They can't even get that because CMB brought it back. So you keep in mind that there was a time when England didn't even exist. So who are these nondescripts? Who are they? What are they doing? What is their intention in being in these public forums trying to, quote-unquote, summons people, our Moroccan people, to their venue, right?
That's right.
But,
that's right.
You know what I mean? Because that's not the law of the land.
Interject the key there. Interject this key there as we talk about what we're talking about, federal question, etc. When they say, oh, well, you can't drive in New Jersey without a license, you have to say, I'm traveling on the American land. American land. That is the key, not in New Jersey, in Connecticut, in Philly, or in anything. I'm traveling on the American land. I'm not driving in New Jersey. And so that's the right words that has to be said. And believe me, we all have to start talking like that. Because if we don't, then we acquiesce to the agreements that we are actually, driving in some corporate union state that absolutely has what? No claim to the land. The Constitution didn't give them that at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what? You're absolutely right. But more than that, we have to study so that we could speak from the heart at all times, because they got programs in place now where, they basically, they'll hear you out and then, circumvent what you're saying. So you have to not only know to say that, but know what else to say. What you might have to say or what you might not have to say. Either way, but it's deeper than that. You're going to have to get to the point where you study so well that you can speak from the heart and defend your position. You understand what I'm saying? Like, and that, what you just said, is the foundation of it. But I'm telling you, I was watching a video clip of a European claiming to be a sovereign citizen before a magistrate, you know, talking that talk, but he didn't know how to bob and weave. He was just throwing jabs, and that got him damaged. You understand what I'm saying? Like, because he didn't have no other moves, like just the jab. So when he got sidestepped by the magistrate, right, because, mind you, the referee's not even supposed to be fighting you anyway. But, you know, when he got sidestepped in low blow, basically, you know what to do, what to say. Like, okay, because now what they're saying, now what they're doing is the European dude said, I'm not a person, I'm the settler, and I'm the individual. And he said, okay, well, all right, is the settler, individual, or person this and that name? And, you know, just basically trying to run laps around them. And if you don't got this in your heart, family, like, no matter what anybody tells you to say, like, not to say take what people are sharing with you is not valuable. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is what we were saying earlier. If you don't make this your own, it's not enough coaching in the world. It's not enough. Nobody can give you these things. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just natural ability versus, you know, some things you just can't train. You can't coach. It's just natural. It's natural. So the only thing that's going to give you that connection to whereas you can on the spot call an audible for your plan, you know, and switch up according to the flow and how things may be going, is to have this information in your heart and mind. That's really the remedy. It's nothing else. How do we go through these situations and come out of them? It's because we were studied. We studied previously, so we were prepared. We didn't, you know, like we didn't step in quicksand and be surprised that it was quicksand. Like, you know what I mean? We were able to avoid certain things by knowing certain things. Like, yo, that is a patch of quicksand. You might not want to step that way because you're going to get sunk in and you're going to have to fight out. So maybe if you avoid stepping in the quicksand, you can stand your square. But first you got to know that it's quicksand where you're going to be sunken in. And it's just like that. Know the terrain, know the land, know the law of the land. So, yes, what you're saying is absolutely correct that, you know, we are traveling in the American land. But you have to know the land to know that. So, again, it goes back to illusions, you know what I mean? And that's just what it is. And that, pardon me, please let me make it clear. I am not saying that what you said is not important or is not valuable, but for people to take it beyond, because some people will take what you said and then they'll be like, oh, well, Roz, Cujo, Ms. Ana said I should say this. I said this. What do I say now? And they don't know what to say next. So what I'm saying is that, yes, everything is truth. That is fact. That's absolute fact. But you have to understand why. You have to understand why, because it goes back to national domicile versus municipal domiciles versus quasi-national domiciles versus, and then that correlates back to, you know, the law of the land, or per legem terrae versus per legem Anglia, or the law of England. So all of these things matter. I just wanted to emphasize that. And again, like I said, that is not to say what you are saying or what you said. It's not right and exact, because it is. It is. But we have to take this a step further as well as comprehending. Just like you know yourself, you need to know your adversary. And that's just it. And I hate to be, I don't hate, but I don't even like to even have to say that. You know what I mean? But the reality is, yes, we have adversity as a nation. There's adversaries, and then going back to what Cujo said, some people get challenged. They stand their square, and then after that they have no problems. Why? Because they did what they had to do, and that set provisions for them, because what they did affected their future. So when they went before them and they stood up and they defended and protected their birthright, it wasn't just for that situation. The next time they're going to know, yo, do not bring this more before me because it's an embarrassment every time. Just let them live. You know what I mean? Just let them live. It's a provisional thing as well. It's for posterity, which is what the whole law of the land is about, posterity. So the things that we're doing now and the challenges we have, you know, whether you have children or not, it's for provisions. And if you do, it's for posterity. And even if you don't, it's for posterity. Why? Because we're all one family with one free national appellation. And with that, I yield the floor. Islam.
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 And it looks like the sun. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Susan.
Well, one more thing to add too. So when Noble Drew Ali told Moors to be themselves, it includes all this stuff that we're talking about.
Yes.
And more things.
Mm-hmm.
So the theme is that it has to come. A light bulb has to go off for every individual that says that, you know what I mean, they're making the claim. Right? Something has to go off. It's going to be your studying that makes that light bulb go off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not going to be anything else but you reading something and you know what I mean? You feel the latch come off.
Yeah.
And you're open to this whole new perspective that you didn't even think about before.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that you're here now, it's supposed to inspire you that, you know, well, let's let off all these latches then. You know what I mean? Let's break down every mental barrier and get to that place where we're one mind.
Absolute.
You know, so if we're saying we're Moors and we got feathers and turbans and nationality cards, then, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's no need to wait anymore. You know, which is why Drew Ali is prophetic, because he told Moors be active, not passive.
Mhm.
You know?
Absolute.
It's real. I yield the floor.
Mhm.
Wow.
And we were talking earlier. We can talk later, but it just brought to mind. Not that we didn't know about the Sunday few more, but that has something to do with what we were talking about earlier. Just plain and simple. I'm not to be looked at as a Negro or colored, and then what does that mean? That means that it's out of the venue. That's what it means.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
Somebody is is that your headset? It's really bad.
That's not me.
Oh, okay. Stop.
All right. So what I'm gonna do at this time, it's 10:30, is I'm gonna open up the blinds. If anyone would like to make a comment, question, or concern, press 1 on your telephone dial, and we'll begin taking calls. But first, there's a scratching, and it's not me.
Okay.
I'm good.
I'm you. So am I.
All right.
All right. It's going. All right, caller 702-673. You're live on the air. Please state your appellation at Northwest New Mexico. All right, they must have hit it by accident. Caller 412-969. You're live on the air. Please state your appellation at Northwest New Mexico.
Islam family, this is Energy calling from Northwest New Mexico. I just calling and appreciate the show. I'm in the chat room just chatting it up. Just some one of our brethren or sister, not quite sure the gender, but United was curious about paperwork. Look, you got to understand, there ain't but a few noble family members out here, handling that, particular affair for us. You don't have to be a little patient if you can hear me. Because you're not responding in the chat room. You asked the question, so I'm letting it be known. It takes time, it ain't but a handful of folks handling it, thousands of paperwork coming in. Successful, what is he doing? Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
So
it takes
that's what it comes down to.
It takes a minute, but we had a show before. A broadcast before. We were explaining some things, and we still have some people who just don't follow the directions and other things that come in. But it does take for the people at least 3 to a month, maybe, for the process to be done, sealed, witnessed, etc. Especially for those who don't have their witnesses, it's done at the sealing.
And you got to be patient. And that doesn't stop you from being who you are.
No, it does not. But and then the other, no, it doesn't. Because some people say, well, I need that because I'm going to court tomorrow. Well, what the hell is that going to do if you're in court tomorrow? You got to be who you are with or without that. You know what I'm saying? It's not really the case. But just said earlier, if you got a ticket yesterday and you just decided I'm going to do this thing tomorrow, it's not going to work. I won't say it won't work because really it's in our DNA anyway. So, but that depends. But the other thing that we have sometimes is that they'll send the applications for the cards to the place for the proclamations and vice versa. And it just messes. It just gets it on. And then the thing that I just really don't like is when they send the email to all the different emails we have and make us have to double time work because we just went into this email that deals with that, and then we got to go to another email and find that it's the same question, and then you got to go back and say, did I answer that? It just makes us all slow down. Just follow the directions and don't send the email to every single mailing address. And then we have another problem with people who have what I'm still going to call a modern European mindset. And they bring that crap into these operations. Well, you didn't answer your phone, so you must not be legit. Well, no, it clearly says the best way for our correspondence is email. Try that instead. I want my finance back, and never even emailed you to ask you what was going on. That's just craziness. But we got to cleanse through all of that.
Uphill battle ain't for the weak of heart.
Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with, an uphill battle. But I look forward to seeing y'all. I still reiterate.
Listen, Energy, I need to call. I've been meaning to contact you, but I definitely, Miss, you have the phone number because I need you. Well, we don't need to have this conversation over the air, but I need you to contact the person who's giving the affair about what you're doing. No, you're not bringing Cujo to Pittsburgh.
No, you're right, and there's no contact number for that person. It's a block.
Okay, well, I have it, and you need to contact them about what you are doing because I don't think it's in conflict. But if you're inviting, okay, so that's what clears this up. If you're inviting, then you need to contact them so that can be something that can be received well on the other end. So we'll talk later. That's really, I just told you, but you need that contact. So I will give it. I'm not going to give it to you over the air. So I will make sure that it gets text to you.
Okay, I appreciate it because I was trying to contact them.
Okay,
but I'm gonna be there, so this was good. And we don't have the call anyway. It's our summer.
But you don't want a division
celebration,
right? But you don't want what celebration? I'm sorry.
It's our summer solstice celebration. I just moved it to the 25th since you all were going to be here.
Got you. Well, we could. Well,
you would have been partying today.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll give you the contact and see what y'all work it out. All right.
Oh, it's not going to be in conflict though. But back to the topic of the subject. Mm-hmm.
Right. Let's do that.
So back to the topic of the subject, being out here handling your affairs, when you're clear, it's not hard at all, especially when you didn't drop that fear, because that's the only real weapon that they're using against you is your own fear. And once you drop that, get past that, the rest is just, being who you say you are, being what you didn't study, because the facts is there. You're not looking for them to uphold anything. They've proved them that they're not about that. And they've operated in a system this way because it's been outside of law this long. So color of law applied to so many people, but when those who step up into their proper person and color of law no longer applies, it's, you're talking pretty much gibberish to people because they don't know what you're talking about, even though they can find out. And even when they're in those positions, like policy enforcers, administrators of so-called courts, they know what you're talking about. And, no, they're not going to comply right away. Like I said, 9 times out of 10, they'll just dismiss the case because they don't feel like dealing with it, nor do they wish for you to open up that can of worms for all those that's in the gallery to hear what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I have found. I mean, I don't find myself in those venues often. I mean, on my little bit of knowledge, I was able to get things, pushed away and they leave me alone, so I appreciate that. Just on that little bit of knowledge from way back when. Now it's like, yeah, I wish you would. Son, I'm going to chat with you for a minute. I ain't going to answer no questions, but I'm definitely going to drop some information on you. I'm waiting for your supervisor to get on the scene. You know what I'm saying? And in the new corporation that we didn't, find ourselves domiciling in, we plan on sitting down and talk with the chief, Hey, this is who we are. This is where we at. This is what it is. So you see us coming through or, this is what it is. Don't even call yourself harassing us because there is repercussions. It just is. We're not going to be dealing with you in your cousin's little venue you call magistrate court. No, we ain't dealing with that. We're going on an international level because you're messing with a national here. That's all that is. If you don't wish injury to be caused, don't cause no injury. That's all I'm saying. And I say this in love and peace.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
And that's where a lot of people be coming at this with all kind of hostility. They really think they got that get out of jail free card type thing. Mind you, you're already in jail because you think you black, Negro, colored, African American, and all that. You already in jail.
Mm-hmm. That's
knocked up.
You just saying in that greater confinement. We're already confined because we're occupied in our own house. Right. And we won't say nothing to our house guests. That don't make sense. It just doesn't make sense to me. But I'm grateful to, know what I know, and I'm grateful to be in a position to share information with anybody I come across. It don't matter what your hue is. I'm chatting with you. What's your nationality? Because everybody's afflicted by this right now, by that handful of people who think they're going to control the globe. Bro, it don't even work like that. You ain't even been here long enough to be trying to do that. This is what we're going to do right here. We're going to make sure we get this right. And once Mom is woke, as we spoke on Sunday, Mom's is woke. There's no stopping this now. You can hang it up. It's a wrap. I did my first pamphlet today. I did. I finally got that out, Ms. Just so you know, I did do it. I was at the library today, got it all done, and I'm just grateful for it.
Oh, what? You talking about your writ? You did your writ?
Not my writ. No, not my writ. I ain't mess with the writ on as far as the house thing go. That's Mom's. She's studying to get her up on that, and I'm just working my divine side, working with the spirits to make sure we can keep these cats off of us, stay back,
you said
stay
you
back.
Did your ritual.
No, I did my pamphlet. I did my
okay.
pamphlet on breastfeeding, nationality, and birthrights. That's the title of it. So, I'm tying breastfeeding in to nationality and birthrights because it's important that mothers breastfeed these children coming through and stop putting these amputated nipples in their mouth with this manufactured concoction, treating our babies like they lab rats. We got to stop that. We got to stop trying to make excuses on why we're utilizing that garbage. We got to stop that. We act like bottles been here all the time. No, your body was doing exactly what it needed to do as soon as you conceived the child. Your body started producing the very liquid that it was needed to nourish that child for at least 6 months to 6 years. So what is you saying? Stop playing with your life. And then I tie in nationality and birthright to that, just to give them some heads up. And like I said, my 2 reference points was RVBey Publications and Canaanland Moors.
Mm-hmm.
All
right. I can't send them to the temple here because the temple ain't teaching civics. The temple is talking about the reincarnated. I'm like, nah, y'all playing.
Oh,
y'all
that's
really
a different.
playing, and it
That's a
breaks my
different
heart.
temple. Though. That's another division of the temples itself. Is the reincarnated one. So yeah.
No, those are playing.
Breaking your heart.
Them cats playing.
Did you say
that's
breaking
my heart? Yes, that's breaking my heart. Come on, now, this is the only temple in the area, and y'all coming with this madness. Y'all running it like it's church. I ain't feeling that because I got babies out here, and they need to be a part of their family, but they ain't going to their families that's mentally ill. We ain't doing that. We done with that. So if I got to do this in the house, do this in the house. If I do this in the yard or in the park, that's what we're going to do this at. But we're going to do this properly. The prophet laid it down, and we're going to follow that to the letter of the law. It's that simple. We don't need to be adding all this extra to it, reincarnated. Dude, he was the driver. Stop playing.
Right. Right.
I mean, just keep it real. I ain't disrespecting nobody. That's the truth. And it hurts my heart when I ride past there every other day, going through that neighborhood and seeing a non-marked building, ain't no flag waving, nothing. You wouldn't even know that was the temple. Man, it's just crazy out here. But, just know who you are, standing on that. And it takes studying. It does. It takes studying. And really, if you did, 12 years of their so-called school, then you all hyped about going to 4 more years and all that. Come on, man. You could do at least a year studying RVBey publications to find out what's really going on. Then you can truly navigate this land you came contracted to be here on. You know what I'm saying? You came from the ether realm to be here, and you didn't come here to be enslaved. That was just a lesson to be learned. And we're now in the Aquarian age, so not too many people going to have too much of excuses on not knowing.
Right, because ignorance of the law is no excuse.
None whatsoever, and I love saying that too. I really love saying that to those who feel that they're in the authority position. Really, because when they get to talking to you and they try to use that tone like they got the authority, it's like, no, you're incorrect in that, and ignorance of the law is no excuse. You don't have jurisprudence. What are we talking about here? What's your status, Who are you? Where you come from? Because you're not an American. Please don't say you're American. I already know better than that. You're not one of the various couple of colored people. You're just not. You're just as pale as the day. You're black, actually. You're black. So what we talking here?
Right.
But you can speak like this when you're clear. And it's good when mother speaks like this, because then, our sons, they got to be out here fighting so hard, having big old bullseyes on their backs, because we mothers still want to play sleep. We ain't sleep. We tripping. Now we just tripping.
Word.
But I yield the floor. Islam family, thank you so much for giving me a little bit of time. And text me. Please text me.
All right. Will do.
The brother's information. Peace.
All right. No problem.
And if we can, I'd like to get that chess game in, too.
Oh, indeed. Indeed. Actually, man, just so you know, I'm specifically creating my chess pieces.
I'm
working on them now, so we can set up on the board.
Oh,
so you know.
All right. That I love that. That's creativity. I gotta take a picture of it. But for sure.
Appreciate it.
Islam.
Islam.
Indeed. But I just want to add on before we go to the next caller, the fact that the sister was talking about the temples and how it was breaking her heart that, they're not how it would be expected. Big salute to Canaan Moors. I know that particular temple is on it. But I just wanted to read this so people don't get the institution confused with the message. And this is out of Bouvier's Institutes of American Law, Book of Equity, page 457. It says, if you look up the word equity, it's dealing with balance, equality, justice. Again, you're talking equity, you're talking Libra, the equilibrium, equator, evenness. Nothing commercialized, as they try to put it today, whereas you can't have equity unless you own a home type of concept. But equity is full of natural justice,
You're breaking up. You're breaking up. You need to go to where you're getting ready to drop out.
Oh, no, I'm right where I need to be. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Equity, as it stands for the whole of natural justice, is more excellent than any human institution. I just wanted to quote that. It's a lot more there, but I just wanted to quote that because equity correlates with justice. So keep that in mind, family. Islam. And also in Article 3, when it's talking about all cases in law and in equity, please understand the relation between the two. Islam.
All right. Our next caller is, let's see. Hold on a minute. Caller 214-565. You're live on the air. Please state your appellation at Northwest Mexican.
Islam, this is Abdul Malik Shakur Bey, calling and addressing the people from Northwest Mexican and the Texas Territory. Once again, family, it is indeed an eye-opener and an ear listener, and those who are studying more Islam, if they apply themselves and do as the prophet stated, study, and show themselves approved, and they will grow in the knowledge of knowing who and where their birthright came from. They are Moors in Northwest Mexican. This is the Northgate. It is some very interesting topic that y'all spoke about tonight. And I'm looking, and I love looking and reading because studying and reading is the growth and the energy calculate not only oneself to innovate everything that has when one was asleep to help him grow and innovate and point him in the right direction. I'd just like to say a few things. Shortly after 1912, after receiving the Kingston Decree of prophet from the noblest authority of the ancient Egyptian order, it was there he was bestowed the name faithful Muslim in order to be accepted in the holy city of Mecca. Was Noble Jew Ali ever a Mason? No. The accuracy of the above date, 1912, of his divine ministry on earth alone dispelled all Western rumors begun by the scandalmongers about Noble Drew Ali being a Western Freemason. A mastermind, yes. A Mason, no. For the proof, he was 16 in 1902 when he left the USA and was 5 years too young to join a Masonic lodge. 10 years later, by the time Ali returned as a holy prophet, he was too angelic and all-knowing to cut down to Masonry. No angel can be made into a Mason, but by diluting Drew Ali's image into the nationless Negro law, his Western hatred would appear to be successful, distorting the sacredness of his prophethood in the minds of his people. Albeit, prophets are the will of the great God, and therefore cannot be combined by the mere oath of carnal man. This is told, if you are honest, oaths are unnecessary. Of course, the insertion of these grand laws, principles of segregation began after Drew Ali departed out of flesh, July the 20th, 1929. The clandestine infiltrations of the Western Masons order would create massive confusion and self-hatred within the ranks of the Moors. As members, his flocks would be scattered, temples disunit, and national constitution of his government would be overthrown. For nearly a century after the prophet left his body, because of the influence of Western Freemasons, Noble Drew Ali message to the world has often been confined away from the public by the strictest of secrecy. But we know that there are those as yourselves who are constantly studying, and bringing the light of our most illustrious prophet to bring us out of darkness into the marvelous light, to wake us up, to wake up the Moabites. And I love, and I stated over and over and over again, I love to see him carrying a Moabite woman, and I've been saying that recently when one tried to boast of how he is running and how he's teaching the nature. I said, you want to tell me something new? You want to make my eyes open? Have a baby. If you can have a baby, then, and guess what? And if you're not a Moabite, then I know it's some type of trickery that you're trying to possess and confound me with. For what y'all are stating to the people, if you do not have this in your heart, and if you do not believe who you are by all the evidence that have been presented before you, then I tell you like this here. Go the way of those as the wind. One will feel, but one will not see. Where the dust may lie and whatever carried into the wind, it may settle. For I am a Moor, and this is my land. I am who I am. And I am from my mother, who's a Moabite, the creation, the God of this universe, Islam.
Islam. Pardon me.
Go ahead.
No, I just have a question because I know I've read that before, and my brain is just itching right now. Because I'm thinking, what you were just saying, was that out of Exhuming of a Nation, or it was some other Moorish literature off RVBey? I'm not sure. But I know I've read about that subject before, as far as Noble Drew Ali being a Mason. Would you mind sharing that with the family, or was that just some math you just did, Islam?
No. What I read, and I know by looking it up and research, and know that is true. The title of the book that I read out is Noble Drew Ali, the Last Prophet. His prophecies and his hadith, Moorish literature, proclamation, sacred warning to all humanity.
Indeed.
Indeed. I think I know which one. Yeah. Okay. I think I got that one.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Once again, family, peace and love. I know you have many callers on the line, but guess what? We're Moors and Moabites, and we'll stand in this North Gate. As Ms. Ram states in her song, the Moors are waking up, and I must confess. Islam.
Islam.
Wow.
All right. Caller 570-926. You're live on the air. Please state your appellation at Northwest Maxim. Islam. All right. I guess that person isn't there. Caller 347-873. You're live on the air. Please state your appellation at Northwest Maxim. Islam. Caller 347-873. All right. righty. Caller 770-334. You're live on the air. Please state your appellation at Northwest Maxim.
Islam.
All right.
Wow.
Yes, Islam. I'm Edna L. calling from Northwest Maxim, near the territory of Roswell, Georgia. Great show this evening. Thank you. This is my first time calling, and I'm calling on behalf of my deceased son, Mustafa Shakur Carnell. You have spoken with him on many occasions in assisting him with foreclosure and fraud on his home. He had been sending documentation to the lower court, which they threw down, and when he filed it to go to the Supreme Court to fight fraud and foreclosure, he died, I guess, 2 to 3 weeks later after he filed the documents.
Wow.
Pardon me, hear that. I hope he lives in peace forever.
Thank you. And you guys have been very instrumental in helping him with the foreclosure, giving him guidance and direction in the paperwork that he was writing. But however, the reason for my call is that to now taking the torch and I'm running with where he left off. And I have been sending documentation, paperwork, proclaiming, showing them my nationality, that I've nationalized, that I am the executrix of his estate because he was not married, nor did he have any children. Letters of cease and desist for them to stop with the foreclosure, proof and documentation of the fraud. I have a report showing at least 9 counts of fraud that they proceeded, but they went on and proceeded with the foreclosure. Fortunately for me, that it went back to the lender, or fortunately, should I say, for them, it went back to the lender. So now I'm in the process of preparing documentation to take it to the Supreme Court. And so my call this evening is because of the documents that I'm preparing and getting it removed from to open the case back up, should I say, because they did close the case upon, as they defined it, his suggestion of death. The only thing that I didn't provide for them, they wanted me to put the case into probate and do a letter of administration. They wanted me to go under their venue to proceed further with what I refused to do. So I guess what I'm asking and why I'm calling is because I know that because the lower courts here aren't listening, they're not answering any of my questions. They're not working with me. They're just trying to take the property. With me preparing to file the removal or to go to the Superior Court, I know that I went out on RVBey and I was able to get information on a template out there to give me some guidance and direction, but I need additional help to try to get this taken care of. I have everything that's required to move forward with this, for this to go to court. I'm able to prove, along with the affidavit of the organization that showed the 9 counts of fraud. In other words, I have everything that's necessary to move forward to get this corrected. Where I'm struggling at is I'm not sure if I'm doing it correctly, number one, and if my reasoning for moving it from the lower court to the higher court. In other words, I just need some direction with that, and I was hoping to send over what I have by fax for someone to look at it. And my son's death is just very recent. So, again, as I said, I'm just taking my position as to what is rightfully mine that they're trying to take.
Well, yeah, because it's inheritance, period. But did you say they had stopped? They ceased and desist after he passed, and then apparently some corporation or whatever came in and tried to continue, or they wanted you to continue, provided, well, you did the right thing with that, because they wanted to make you an administrator, which means you would come under them and you're like, no, this is inheritance. Basically, is your position, which was great. But did you say that they stopped doing it and then they started again or something after he passed?
Well, when Mustafa was working with you all, he had mastered stopping the foreclosure. And how he was going about doing it, I wasn't truly certain of. So now that when he transitioned,
okay,
now they came after me.
Well, now it's in your hands. So when he was doing it, you really weren't on it at that time.
I'm sorry, please repeat that.
When he was doing that, you weren't really on it at that time with him. He was mastering it.
Well, no, I wasn't. I was spending more. Go ahead. No, but to answer your question,
what territory was Mustafa in? What corporate city state are you talking about?
Here, if I understood you correctly, here in Roswell, Georgia.
Oh, Georgia. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm not. So no, and are you familiar with working with him? Have you ever talked to him?
Talk to whom?
No, I was asking.
I don't recall. I don't recall talking with him.
Well, yeah, and actually, and I apologize for interrupting. You and Mustafa did have conversation and correspondence with email. And I think it was several months before he did transition. Because you were very instrumental in helping him get the paperwork corrected. He was sending information by Federal Express to you, and I knew because I was getting the mail, and I knew that you all were corresponding. So I know he sent emails to you. But whatever it was, everything that you all were helping him with was working until they threw it out of the lower courts, and then he was taking it to the Supreme Court. But like I said, when he filed the documentation, my son died 3 weeks later. So we weren't able to move forward. And when I notified them of his death, that's when they then started coming after me to take the property. And when I mentioned the cease and desist, because I knew that they couldn't take this property, I put a letter together informing them to cease and desist on this, and they moved forward instantly. And I went to the foreclosure. I tried to get the judge to stop the process. The judge wouldn't stop the process. It proceeded on. But because I'm sorry.
Did they stop the process before?
No, the process went on. But what happened is that where they were starting the bid at, the lender took the bid even higher, and no one took the property. So that's why I said it went back to the lender. And that just happened 2 weeks ago, if not less. So I know that with Georgia being a non-judicial state, as I understand, they will probably move forward very soon, quickly. And this is why I want to move this to the Supreme Court, Superior Court, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to ask, did you have another date? Like, is there another date as of right now, or what's happening with that?
That it has not, no other date has been given to me as of yet. Again, as I said, the proceeding just took place 2 weeks or less ago. June the 7th, actually, is when
they went forth on. They stopped the court. They proceeded in the court thing, and it went back to the lender, which must be a bank, correct?
Yes, it is.
Right, which can't own property. They're a corporation anyway. But Annie, do you recall working with him a little bit?
I don't.
All right,
I don't.
But real quick, just to put things in perspective, in all due respect, because there is a lot of things that could be done about it. But I personally, I don't have any first-hand knowledge of how that situation went. But just to put it in perspective, like, does he have any biological sisters or brothers?
Yes, he has a brother.
Right. Not, and that's not to exclude you because you have a claim to whatever was left too. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of ways you could go about it as far as getting in your national status or being in your national status. Because, I mean, like I said, I don't know all the first-hand details, but keeping in mind that as society starts with family, so does authority or government, like that the inheritance is always within the family. So it can either ascend or descend based off the fact you said he's not a part of, you know, the act of, what should I say, co-creating with the act of having lineal descendants. I know it's kind of hard to find the right words with that, but the fact that you are his direct descendant, there's a lot of claims that could be made because you're talking about it going back to the lender and things of that nature. But in all reality, you know, the mortgage was a dead pledge ab initio, so that's a fraud. And inheritance is natural. Succession is natural. So, I mean, I think, you know, maybe we can add on more than we can on the line, off the line. But I would say this. The only thing we could do is review and just give you information that you can move with in that situation. Because, you know, in all reality, you being his mother, right, and him acquiring a certain portion of land, you know, as an estate, like you're always his successor. Like, you know what I mean? He would be the successful. Nah, I don't think he was talking to me. I'm not sure about that one, but excuse me. But for sure, I would say that you have a position in this that you can take, and I don't know if it would be beneficial to the family it would, but I don't know how sensitive your situation is right now, so I wouldn't even want to like start saying what you should or could or wouldn't do or shouldn't do. But certainly you do have a standing to go ahead and claim, you know, as a state and his siblings as well, all of you. But like I said, I haven't seen anything, and I don't know how sensitive revealing the strategy would be. But that's just where I would be at with it. Islam.
Well, you mentioned two things. Possibility of communicating further offline, I would appreciate that. And when you speak of the level of sensitivity, because of the state in which we reside in, and with it being again non-judicial, they can move, to my understanding, as quickly and don't have to follow procedures if they choose not to. I'm comfortable. Let me just say I'm comfortable in saying that I think it is a very sensitive matter and something that needs to be addressed immediately. Because even when they sent the letter to me that they were going to start the proceeding with the foreclosure, and I sent all documentation that showed that I had a rightful claim to this property, it was totally ignored. It didn't matter to them. And I can only imagine that it's going to move again very quickly. And don't want to sound anxious or anything like that. I just want to stay on top of this, to be ahead of this in the event it shows up next week that they're getting ready to start the foreclosure again, and that may be very well too soon. But my position is to start putting all the ducks in order now. So if we can speak again offline, and I send documentation over to you or whomever to help give guidance and direction, it would be greatly appreciated. Hello?
Islam. Yeah, Islam.
Well, I wrote down your number.
Okay.
And we'll see if we can get in touch with you and talk with you some more. Off.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All righty.
Islam family, thank you.
Peace and love, sister.
Thank you.
And again, I hope, that the brother is, your son is your angel at the same time, considering he passed on. So peace be to you and him.
Thank you. We both appreciate that. Thank you.
All right.
Indeed.
Islam.
Already, caller. Oh, wait. Let me make sure I'm not missing somebody. Caller 443-376. You're live on the air. Please state your appellation and.
Islam. Islam. Oh, I'm sorry. I got cut off. Hey, Mother Anaid, how are you? I am Hassan RVBey at Northwest of Mexham. How's my beloved family? How's everyone?
All is well.
Awesome. As always, tuning in, loving what's being discussed. I did try to get into Sister Standing on Law on Sunday to add to the discussion. But it seems like it was only, I think, 3 calls taken that day, but that was fine. It gave me enough time to get everything together as what I wanted to bring to the table for the family today in lieu of who we are and as more American nationals and not quasi-nationals. I wanted to speak briefly on, since I'm on a Mexham, where the Baltimore Corporation is trying to occupy, basically, this area where they are doing the. I wanted to bring up the DHR, which is known as the Department of Human Resources for the quasi-national Maryland Corporation, so to speak. And I wanted to bring out a few things here, which is usually a huge issue for a lot of sons. One issue of which brought me, I would say, was my alarm clock, because we can't, our descent nature is no different. We were Moors before us awakening to this information. It's just that the alarm clock went off for me, or that point of the sword, so to speak, was the whole family services situation. So when battling with that in 2 years, of studying and, for lack of better words, nationalizing in my mind as well as in documentation, I just wanted to assist the family in this broadcast, knowing that it will be archived as well, especially for those that are near the Baltimore Corporation and even the family abroad, just with the protocol, so to speak. I looked up the child support services here and see that that's being ran by the State of Maryland Corporation, as well as the Child Protective Services is also being headed, so to speak, by the State of Maryland Corporation, as well as I already said the child support enforcement. Now, when I looked, because we know that if we're dealing with these things, for lack of better words, for it's always the head you want to aim for, the principal, so to speak, when you're doing the notice to principal, notice to agent, so to speak. And I looked up the chief executive and operations officer, which seems like that's a CEO and a COO being worn by one individual who goes by Joseph DePremio, who, when you actually do his LinkedIn research, and for those that may be on other parts of Mexico or other parts of the world that have these similar services that they call them, that are really huge in helping to break up the family when mothers are incompetent or minors of mind, and they hire these people as local parentis. You had brought that up, Sister Roz, Mother Roz, in Sunday's broadcast of Sister Standing on Law. And loco is dealing with locality, in other words, in place of real parents. So they hire these corporations, and here near the Baltimore Corporation, the head in whom they're they're hiring when it comes to child support would be this Joseph DePremio, who can be easily looked up in LinkedIn. And when you kind of just briefly see his statement that he says, it says a message from Executive Director Joseph J. DePremio. And I'm going to bring this full circle and I'll be brief. But I wanted to take this, what I'm saying about these child services thing, in lieu of the final call to action dealing with the Sister Standing on Law series, and tie that in with page 1064 of Black's Law Dictionary, which would be the PDF page. For those of us using the Black's Law 4th PDF, it would be 1140, the PDF page, but traditionally 1064 as the regular page. And that is where liberty is, but I thought it was interesting that the word liberticide was there as well. And just briefly, liberticide on, let me type in this 1140 real quick in the concordance for the dictionary. Liberticide is a destroyer of liberty. So what's more liberating than having to, being a son, assisting a mother to bring life to the earth plane, for she's choosing us to defibrillate the ovum that's in her womb. So that's very liberating. There's life, liberty, and the pursuit of property, so to speak. So these child protective services, these quasi-nationally ran so-called services, these Jeffries that adjudicate upon the Fresh Princes unlawfully, they are those that perpetuate liberticide, if we were to really look at it from that perspective. And so to see what this guy is saying, a message from Executive Director Joseph J. DePremio, and it says Esquire is his title. So I think that's interesting that not only is he an Esquire, but he's a CEO and COO of the child support services. And when you really do his LinkedIn and see his resume, this guy is doing nothing but trying to find ways of making sure that the quasi-national government is always being able to feed vampirously, if that's such an adverb, to feed off of the energy of the people, of the common people, and those of us that are part and parcel to the land, of course. It says, welcome to the new Maryland Child Support Enforcement Administration website. We've made several improvements to help you find the information and services you need as quickly as possible. Click the tabs in the bar above if you are paying child support. That just was a red flag, because we know nobody has real money. They're dealing with notes. Receiving support or are an click the buttons to the left, and it tells you what to do or whatever, blah, 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 blah. But it says last year, DHR, which is seemingly denotes Department of Human Resources for the state of Maryland, collected and distributed a record 559 million Federal Reserve notes in child support, and more than 214,000 families, they say, benefited from our services. Okay, so that right there is like they're providing a service which in its nature breaks up the family. So this is a public servant, or who's under the guise of a public servant, who's really prosaying in pursuit of muscling sons for energy based on the incompetence of the mothers that are not up or awake, so to speak. So they're hiring this corporation head by this Esquire that's wearing these multiple hats of CEO and COO. So it's like, if we just are able to just do like a brief research like that I'm just, just trying to put out there, that's not really hard. We don't need to panic. We just do a brief research and we'll instantly see that these people have no foothold. The only foothold that they really have on us is our lack of knowing who they are. And once we deplete that lack of knowledge, then we can truly, truly be who we are and start directing Jeffrey as we do, as we should when it comes to the public servants. So to try to kind of segue off of that a little bit and just briefly get into the last part of this, I wanted to bring up suicide in lieu of liberticide. So suicide is on page 1602 of Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. That's the PDF page for those using the PDF, 1678. And I just thought it was interesting to correlate liberticide and suicide, because this is how usually the sons are unlawfully pursued by these quasi-national corporations, feigning as if they're trying to help family, but they're really not. And it says suicide is self-destruction. That is the first thing that it says. It says the deliberate termination of one's existence. And the prophet taught the Moors how to be themselves, and we know that in law that's in propria persona. So if you're killing your own existence, which is in propria persona, so that would be suicide. Just to kind of finish this definition, while in the possession and enjoyment of his mental faculties. Thought that was interesting. One more time. Self-destruction, the deliberate termination of one's existence while in the possession and enjoyment of his mental faculties. And it tells you to see some case law there, okay? And then it further goes. The term suicide, as used in insurance policies, has been held to mean death by one's own hand. So when you're signing these things out of threat, duress, and coercion and not putting all rights reserved on the line first before you put your alleged autograph, you're committing suicide, thus perpetuating liberticide, because you're killing your own liberties. You're destroying your own liberties due to this lack of knowledge, as you know, it is credited that Yeshua has said in the Biblioteliotext. And to just lastly, it says irrespective of his mental condition. So that means that you can commit suicide by your own hand, irrespective of your mental condition. So whether you're competent or not, major-minded or minor-minded, if one can commit suicide on that line because now they have allowed their life's energy to be consumed unlawfully due to a lack of knowledge, but by these vampirist quasi-national jurisdictions. And that's where I'm going to yield the floor. But lastly, I did send an email to the family, too, dealing with the solar return of July 4th. This would be marking the 240-year, so to speak, mark of July 4th, 1776. And I just think it's really interesting if we, those of us that are watching the clock, paying attention to the ephemeris, to see and notice that there are a lot of planets back to where they were when they were July 4th of 1776. A lot of those planets are aligned again and will be there again this July 4th coming up. So I just wanted to put that out there to the family to research. I send it to the MHHS email. I send it to RVBey email. I also send it to the Canaanland Moors email as well, so that the whole family can just analyze it, just to, have it as something in mind to consider, and just to kind of, I guess, check the climate of July 4th, 1776, and then just look at the clock and notice this cycle 7 that we're about to experience again this year, because those energies are in the same place, just to kind of point it out. And there's a website that I referenced to and left the link for as well for the family to go and research that, as well as it's posted on my Facebook as well, because I just really am starting to really see and really get that civics and cosmology are definitely hand in hand. So it's like if you watch the clock, you can kind of see what's going on as far as governing yourself and dealing with these quasi-national beings, and vice versa. So that's just all I wanted to put out there. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for taking my call. I love you, family. I love you. I love you. Peace and love.
Brother. This is Sister Rise. Well, thank you. You just gave a lesson in all of that right there, and then much else to say. You gave that lesson, Islam, and thank you for it.
Islam. But you know what? With all due respect to everybody, I just want to take a moment to give credit where it's due. Ani, Ma, salute to y'all, because y'all are inspiring people to talk like this. Real talk. No, real fact. Teacher appears when the student is ready, but a lot of people were students first. We all were students first. Ani, the class you did last week, you showed people how to go into the origin of these things, and now this brother calls in talking like this. You feel what I'm saying? I'm just saying, take a minute to give credit where it's due.
Thank you.
Last week
Thank
on
you.
the Wednesday class, not only did you deliver a great message, but those who are paying attention to the blueprint that we are all leaving. The brother who just called in is a perfect example of that, because you went into the origin of the first women with the foster care and how it goes into animals. And then the brother calls in this week speaking like that. You feel what I'm saying? We went in on previous things, going in on liberticide and things like that. So, I don't know. I just wanted to take a minute to give the props where it's due as far as the liberators and the inspirations that all Moors have these days. And the brother went in on it being vampiric. Cujo, I got to quote you. It's vampiric, but most can't hear it. And with that, I yield the floor. I just wanted to give respect where it's due. You know what I mean? Like, we've been on this, so say that. You know what I mean? Islam.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say something to the brother. I got to give him some props, too, because I remember the brother that just came off the air, guys. Me and Annie and I both remember him, and he has come quite a long way. I just wanted to say that for himself from what I know. I mean, we can only go by what we know, and that is based on what people say, how their language changes. So I just wanted to give him that. Go ahead, Cujo.
Oh, no, I didn't have anything.
Oh, I thought you were saying something to that. All right. Well, thank you, son, for that. I know Anna Edith, thank you, too. I know that she said so. I think, because, she'll be going in, and all you got to do is say, well, I mean, we're going to be discussing whatever. Same thing with you, man. Same thing. We're going to be discussing such thing. Y'all got everything regarding that subject matter. Once we decide.
And you know what I mean? I'm just saying. You know what I mean? Like, because we're leaving a blueprint that's inspiring people. So my thing is, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, because look at how many people we lost just this year alone, and I just felt like it was worthy to do that while we are still here, because, everybody loves, Muhammad Ali now that he passed. Everybody loves everybody now that they're gone. And I'm just saying that, the fact that we're here now and I see the results of your inspiration, even myself, I just wanted to take a minute to give that acknowledgement because, we hear time in, time out. People speaking based off of our that's being taught, and then people speak and they quote and they don't give the reference to what they're quoting. I'm just saying, let's be for real and give the acknowledgement where it's due. So respect to y'all, salute to you all.
And here's the key to what we're discussing as well is that when you do go to look at something, when you have this foundational information, the way in which you see it is totally different. You know what I mean? Like when you have that foundational, when you don't have that, the concepts are all wrong. So when the concepts are right, it all comes together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Islam to everybody. How's that?
Islam. All right. Well, it looks like we do not have any more questions. So we can either end this broadcast or if somebody wants to add any more to this particular subject matter discussion.
Well, actually, we got into the federal question, but we never really got into the heat of the federal question, just to tie that up, if you will, because we started talking about a lot of other things. We understand what the federal question is, but just to reiterate, if you will, as we end this and wrap up what the federal question actually is or means, because it is tied into the Constitution, Article 3, if you would.
Right. The federal question, whenever there's a federal question, it has to do with two issues and two issues only. The first is constitutional violations. If there's a constitutional violation, that's a federal question, because the states, they sometimes they do not enforce the Constitution, although many state that they've taken an oath to enforce the Constitution. So, that's the job of the feds, is to make sure that the states are, adhering to the American Constitution, but also that the protection that is embodied in that document for the people is being carried out. And the obligation of the people is to report when there's a constitutional violation. There is a constitutional violation. And what makes it very interesting for Moor is that it doesn't matter who you are interacting with outside of another Moor, the issue is always diversity. It's that simple. You don't need to go in there and prove you are Aboriginal Indigenous. The reason that you are the heir apparent or the beneficiary apparent is because you are a descendant of an African in America. But what's really interesting to know is that being a descendant of Africa, you're on this is Africa. So it's like you have to know these things, because if you don't comprehend what the diversity is, whatever argument or federal question you put in, if it is convoluted, frivolous, or too busy, it's going to get missed and chucked. All right?
Yeah.
Now,
Give them a reason.
Right. So now, here's the thing. Federal questions belong in federal courts, but what you are going to have to do is you're going to have to check out, and you're going to really have to do some research to determine what type of federal court may be near you. How did they get established? Because one of the things that I found from my research is that the federal court, most courts, even the Supreme Courts outside of Washington, D.C., they were established based off of the Judiciary Act of 1789. Now, what's significant about the Judiciary Act is it has nothing to do with Congress, delegating authority. Now, when I first read it, confused. How can you have a Judiciary Act where you're granting powers to states to establish a lower court? So that goes against Article 3 of the American Constitution. Here's where you can almost get tripped up. The Judiciary Act went down in 1789, and the American Constitution went into force in 1791. So as of 1791, the Judiciary Act was null and void. That means any alleged court that you're going into that was established based on the Judiciary Act is null and void.
Right.
All right? Now, what you have to look at is you're going to have to look at where is the federal court, because it can't be any of these state courts, and it can't be any based on the Judiciary Act. Just, so we got some work to do, because now that we have the comprehension of the federal question as it relates to diversity and violations of your unalienable, constitutionally secured liberties, now that we got that clear, we now have to find a competent court to listen to this federal question. Because the language that I found when it talked about the local court here is it said that if the federal court had jurisdiction over that particular state. Now, to me, what that says is that look, a federal, if there's a federal question in one union state, it is only applicable to that union state. If you go into another union state or near another union state, it may not apply. That's, to me, what I got, because the federal court is based on they only have jurisdiction over the state that they were established in. And now I did a little bit of research, and I found this to be true in one decision or argument by a magistrate that I found. I found it to be true. So now what we have to do is we really going to have to start looking for the federal court that would cover all of the United States or Union States in America. And to me, the only place that you can find that would be Washington, D.C., because here's my thing. Right. See, this is what I see. They will have you running on a treadmill like you are a hamster. For example, and I can use the right to travel, right? You have a right to travel. It is unalienable. It is constitutionally secured liberty, all right? Now, you can go to a federal court, say, in near New York or under the jurisdiction of New York, but whatever decision they make only applies to New York. If you take that same federal decision to, say, Massachusetts, they're going to say, well, they don't have any jurisdiction over us. We're Massachusetts, and that's New York, and they're correct, because that's how those federal courts were established.
Right.
So we need to find the federal court that blankets all of the unions.
But that Supreme Court decision, that would be, well, see, that only makes sense that it would be the Supreme Court where all original jurisdiction rests in the first place, Article 3.
It does sound like that, but here's the challenge. Here's the challenge with that. So you're going to have to, pitch a tent outside of the Supreme Court of the United States and just be up in there every single day, because they pick and choose cases that they are going to, review, and they only do that between October to October. Now, to me, if there is an issue of constitutional violation, they have to address it. They're the only venue that can address it, really. So for them to say, okay, well, we only review X amount of cases, and the rest, and so they get, and I read this on their website, they said they get I want to say maybe 700 petitions to review a case for constitutional violations, and they might only review 17 for their calendar year.
Yeah, and that's probably all they can get to, maybe.
Right, but here's the thing: we're gonna have to do some research. And the other thing that I'm gonna say is we need to get familiar with how to navigate through these tribunals and or courts. And I say that not that they don't have jurisdiction, not that they do have jurisdiction, but we need to know, okay, if I want to put in a suit, how am I going to do that? What might I run into? What should the format be? Should I go with more than one copy? Should I give them my original or keep my original? Should I make sure they stamp the one I'm giving them as well as the one I'm keeping for myself? How do you get a case argued? it the whole case or is it pieces of the case? You know, is what's going on? We have got to comprehend how to navigate, because I believe that in comprehending that, we can then begin to, set up or convene our own court and argue our own issues.
Right, because we wouldn't have it in the same time when you're talking about the constitutional secured, already res judicata case law. There should be no reason to repeat anything.
Exactly.
But let me say this. We were active as we ought to be, being the government, because we are. It's the people. They wouldn't have gotten away with a lot of this over these years in the first place.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we have a lot of work to do, and we have a lot of issues that need to be investigated. You know, we right to travel is right up there on the top 10. You know, if we had to put together a list and look at the 5 top issues, you have right to travel, you have the theft, the kidnapping of the baby, you got the mass incarceration of the son, all right? You got the violation of the basic life liberty, and then you got the compelled exchange of Federal Reserve notes, which by their own definition is simply an IOU. Really, it's not even an IOU. What it is a debt note. It says that we're going to give you this piece of paper until we get real money. But here's the thing. And a lot of Moors get tripped up about it. Here's the thing. We never needed real money, meaning silver and gold, in order to get the basic necessities of life. Corporations need that.
Islam. Pardon me, please, because we're going to have to do a collective class on this, or Sister Standing on Law, or Sons of Allah, on what you're talking about right now. Because I'm telling you, less than an hour before we started going in, I came across something, and I had to stop, and I had to share with my mother and others about Franklin D. Roosevelt's speech. Are y'all familiar with the, it might be called fireside speech or fire chat. It might either be fireside or fire chat. But he was going into everything about how this was after the Depression and the quote-unquote bank holiday, as Roosevelt referred to it. All right, we're talking 1933 to 37 Gregorian calendar. And he was talking about, the speech is titled Fireside or Fire Chat, either one of those two, part 1. And he was going into, and only Moors who've studied a little bit about the Constitution, at least Article 1, Section 10, with the gold and silver standard, only Moors will really pick up on this or enlighten people on the Constitution. But anyway, he was speaking about this particular situation and what was being implemented afterwards. So after the Depression and after the banks closed, this pale European, the true black man, the European, Franklin D. Roosevelt, we're not even 100 years ago, operating within the territorial jurisdiction of Moors or Americans' ancestral estate, North America. This dude said from the jump, he was talking about the bank holiday, and one of the things he was saying was, please understand, this is not a fiat system. Da, 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 da. He was also saying how there's really only 12 Federal Reserve banks, right? And the fact that people shouldn't be worried because this was like right before they started opening banks back up, so-called banks back up. And he said, oh, no, well, I know people have the question, how do we discern of federal banks from fraud banks? Because, you know, the only ones that had, because mine's are correlating still with the federal question, is the Federal Reserve banks. It was only 12. And then after the closure of all of these, they opened back up, and he was saying how, all right, well, maybe all of these won't open on the same day, but you should understand, or, well, he was saying understand that all of these, when they open back up, will have the same effect. But what he in his speech, family, and I suggest everybody Google this, and we will, I can guarantee you, sometime before this year is out, maybe sooner than later, we're going to have to play this audio because it's that impacting on this note. But he was saying that when these so-called banks open back up, that they would be the state banks, right? He made a fine distinguishment between these specific 12 Federal Reserve banks. And again, check how they're using the science of the zodiac, 12 reserve banks, 12 astrology signs, etc. He was saying that, you know, being as though there's only 12, it has to be a question as to which ones are official, like which ones are legit. Now, we know, being the Aboriginal people of the land, none of them are really official. But what he was saying was that there will be other banks opening up, but these will be so-called state banks or vassal state quasi-national domiciles, to be specific, banks. And he was saying that they will be under the supervision of the national government. Now, mind you, these Europeans are not the Aboriginal nationals of the land. However, when he was making reference to the fact that the states, banks, right, because he was talking about circulating this Federal Reserve note, and I don't know if you recall, because you only saw it once, and not even really because there was so much going on. But the fact that in the beginning, he was saying that I need the people to understand. Like, this is what the dude who enacted all of this said. He said, I need the people to understand that more valuable, as far as implementing the Federal Reserve note, all right? He said what was more valuable than the gold and the silver was the people's confidence in the Federal Reserve note. Now, simmer on that. Like, really think about that. And I'm going to say it again. What was, to them, to the modern Europeans, what was more valuable than the gold and the silver was the confidence of the people themselves in the fiat note. All right? Now check this out. What was so crazy about them opening the banks back up is now, besides the 12 Federal Reserve banks, they were opening so-called state banks, which was unconstitutional from the jump to give them the standard of the Federal Reserve note when they opened back up. And again, you've heard Todd say this. They call it the bank holiday. This is how Roosevelt himself was referring to these situations as bank holidays. Why? Now, another thing he said was that people need to understand this, that when you put your Federal Reserve note into the bank, it's never put into a deposit and locked away. He specifically said, this is your boy Roosevelt, President Roosevelt, 1933 through 37. He said that there's no dollar that is put away, all of it is invested. Like, think about that. You go to the bank and you think you put in your the fruits of your labor in safekeeping. But no, that's not what's happening. They are investing it. Right now, I'm not one to be big on the banker thing, but I had to speak on this when you was talking about, you know, the exchange of finance, etc. and how he also mentioned that the states will be opening banks operating in cooperation with the national government, meaning that there was a distinction between the national government and the so-called states. So-called states. You have to listen to this, family, with your Moorish ears and eye. Really receive that. The fire chat or the fireside, something of that nature, Franklin Roosevelt. And just listen to that in comparison with Article 1, Section 10 of the American Constitution, not the European Constitution, not the English Constitution. And in all due respect, it's really not the United States Constitution. It's the American Constitution, because United States is not a nationality, which is why Noble Drew Ali told all of us, whether we was here then or just got here now, that those who failed not to just recognize their free national name, but those who failed to recognize the free national name of the constitutional government. Like, listen to that. Really absorb that. The free national appellation of your constitutional government, not of your nation, but of your constitutional government. Can't tell me it's the U.S. That's the free national appellation. But he goes on to say that those who fail to recognize that free national appellation of their constitutional government, they are classed as undesirables. Like, those who fail in that regard. So I say that to say this. Pardon me, I didn't mean to go too far left, but we got to go in on this. You mentioned something about the banking and the exchange of commerce or something that took me there, because I find it, pretty interesting to hear this coming from his mouth. As far as him specifically saying that the only thing that makes this system work is the confidence of the people themselves, and the fact that whatever you give them, they're not putting away, they're investing. Yep. And you know what I mean? Like,
he
all
said
of
it.
this shit.
He said it. No diggity, no doubt. That's what he said. When your money comes
right.
in, it's not just sitting there. We're investing it. So what? That's what banks are. That's what he's saying.
Yeah. Now correlate that back to the fact that in law, the word bank and bench are synonymous in the so-called magistrate sitting on the bench or the bank.
Yeah.
So you already know what their agenda is. And
we need to know what ours is. We need, like you said, like the brother said.
Say that again. You speak in law.
We need to know what our agenda is, what our where we are. As national.
Absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely, because there's forces working on the people at large that have an agenda. I remember being in school, and maybe it was about the 3rd or 4th grade. They introduced us to an agenda book, which was provisional. They had all the months of school year, all of this thing here, right? So people had plans, and they were thinking long term. Well, you need to understand that Europeans think long term, and that's a part of their agenda. So for us to match that, we're gonna have to do the same, and understand the past and what we're gonna do in the present to provisionally make sure our future is comfortable, because we spoke about this before. It's a trinity to life. So, like, we exist in now, those listening, and you have the past, the present, and the future. People say you can't change the past and nobody knows what the future holds and things of that nature. But, fam, it's only one thing that can affect the past or the future, which is the present. So what you're doing right now, like right now, like we here, we building, we all recharging, and throughout the week we'll be learning and handling different tasks, and some people will be making sure they got food on the table for their family, but all of these things matter as far as what you do now that can affect the past and the future, because that's just what it is. So, yeah, as of now, we have a decent record of Moors who've been active and who, based off of their present actions and how they held themselves in the future, severed themselves from the relationship of servitude. And again, just another example. I'm going to go to the past for this particular example. But, you know, we were talking about our brethren Muhammad Ali, and I don't mean to jump around, but all of this is relative. People just say, oh, yeah, before he was Muhammad Ali, he was Cassius Marcellus Clay. But what a lot of people overlooked was that he was hit with the Nam de Guerre, emphasis on the Nam de Guerre, Cassius Marcellus Clay, the sixth, meaning the fact that he corrected his free national appellation in the present moment that he did it. It affected his future as far as lineal descendants, relatives, but it also broke a piece of history from the past, whereas he had a free national appellation now, because it wasn't like he just got hit. Like, he broke 6 generations of Roman names or Roman brands on him and his family. Just off of that alone, just off of correcting his appellation, 6 generations of that was severed in perpetuity. So I say that to say that think about when he did that, what he severed, and what we could even speak about today, you know, because that move in that moment at that time severed something from the past, which affected that and also affected the future, the provisions. So, I mean, there's 1,000 other examples we could use, but one that we're all familiar with, mostly everybody on this line, is status correction and appellation correction, things of that nature. So I use that example specifically. But what you do right now can either, like, let's say you got falsely accused of something, right? And by the time the accusation, the false accusation happened, it's a thing of the past. It's something that's in the past that you might have to deal with in the present to, you know what I mean, shape and mold what your future looks like. That's a trinity of life. So all of these things affect things. And not to say we don't have the right to move forward, but in moving forward, understand what you're affecting, you know, the trinity of life. So, pardon me, I could go on for days on that, but I just wanted to add on that concept of the banking with the fact that the dude who spearheaded this himself, so-called President Roosevelt, founder, spearhead of the democracy, and a lot of the biases that you see today, this guy right here said that this Federal Reserve System will only work with the confidence of the people. And Article 1, Section 10 forbids states from making anything but gold and silver coin to tender for payment in debts. So always keep all of these things in mind, no matter what your challenges are, how you feel. I know things get challenging and things of that nature, but always keep in mind the law of the land, the per legem terrae, the law of the terrain, Tierra, planet Earth. And that's my piece. Islam.
Islam. I will say this in closing out, and in dealing with the federal question, which really is diversity of citizenship, of which that's really what it is. And you know what, it hit me that's the whole reason why the Constitution was really written, was just behind that. I mean, I won't say that's why it happened. It didn't have to happen at all, but it was to maintain that diversity.
Right.
What did you agree that it was to maintain that diversity as to who is who and what is what, and that's why it described all of those limitations for the states.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
It's right back there.
Exactly.
And everything that was said and everything that Ms. was talking about with any of the presidents of the United States of America, you got that they're not your president. They're not. They are the president of the Union State. We have got to understand that. But because we slacked and didn't and aren't active, they're like, well, okay, all right. Nobody's sitting in the Oval Office. Ain't nobody, no one cares about these matters. They don't care about their own liberties. Shoot, let's take them. Let's take them down. Tell them, the banners all of a sudden became the flag. And then people say, oh, yeah, well, they did usurp. But how are you going to say that the nation is taken over when the descendants are standing there calling themselves things that give them no liberties because they're not honoring their own mothers and fathers? So what does it mean? As soon as we come into that consciousness and we make that claim, we are alive, which is what in full life means, as opposed to in civil little more twos, meaning, that we are fiction, we don't have mothers and fathers, we don't, know where we came from, we're just subjects of a union. How can you be a subject of a union state? It just doesn't make any sense. So I think that's correct. That's the whole reason, a great portion of the reason that the law of the land was laid down to maintain the diversity of who is who, and that is the deal with what is the question. And federal meaning a union, federal meaning a coming together of two. It's all over the place, of two. So that's the management, if you will, of making sure that everyone follows the law of the land. And so, of course, it becomes the federal question, and that's Article 3.
Good. That's it. And the thing is, you know how they say, and sometimes they don't even say this. And honestly, I know a lot of people got off with this particular aspect, or raise this question. Sometimes it might not have any relevance. Sometimes it does. But when they talk about the so-called Miranda rule, right? And they say that, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you type of thing. Like, first of all, that when you challenge the essence of that, it's kind of unconstitutional, but it works for people, But one of the things they try to say from the jump is that you have the right to remain silent, and the things that you say can and will be used against you, unless you got jurisdiction, family, and they can't hold nothing you say against you. But the fact that when you look at the things that, they say or they write, and you learn how to use that against them, as far as your accuser, right? Because most of the time they are fronting as if a fiction, a corporation called the state of whatever is your adversary, when really it's the person who gave you the bill of exchange operating in the name or in co-conspiracy with that particular name, or, vassal state. So the thing is, to keep the argument really, really simple in enforcing the Constitution is simply this. If they ever allege that the state is a party to the matter, forget if they right or wrong. You know what I mean? Question, does the magistrate, the first thing to ask yourself is, the magistrate seeing this claim as valid on his face, right? Because they're alleging the state of whatever. So if they're trying to call you to the building, then you give an assumption that they see this claim as valid, right? Just generally. Now, all law is specific, so let's not get caught up in assumptions. But on the face of things, if they try to call you in for a meeting on a void accusatory instrument, then they must be holding some sort of validity to the claim or to the process, not necessarily the claim. But my thing is, if they say in this estate, you can save yourself a lot of argument by saying, well, you know what? This is the bottom line. These people are obligated to the Constitution, right? This particular claim says that the state is a party. A million reasons why the court doesn't have jurisdiction. There's the state courts, the superior courts, the municipal courts, these particular branches, right? Because really they are municipal courts. It's a multitude of reasons for Moors why those venues don't have jurisdiction. But the primitive one to cut a lot of argument is the fact that if the accuser is saying that the state is a party, Article 3, like you just said, Ma, Article 3 of the Constitution, Section 2, says in all cases, not in some cases, not in some, not in traffic courts. It says in all, not in drug cases, not in so-called gun cases. It says in all cases where the state shall be party, the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction. It doesn't get any simpler than that. And I have nothing to say to you until these so-called accusations are brought to the proper venue. If the accuser's not going to bring these accusations to the proper venue, he's disrespecting the so-called magi, right? Himself and the law, and myself. That's an injury. Like if he or she really wants to hold this claim, bring it to the proper venue, and I'll present my defense there. Other than that, I really have nothing to say except for you're doing a great job for dismissing this case for lack of jurisdiction. Bottom line, I mean, there ain't nothing else to talk about. You know, really. I mean, now I could just say that ideally, and you know you're going to have challenges. But, I mean, you don't have to get off of that in conjunction with Marbury versus Madison. You know what I mean? As far as the question of constitutional violations. Now, when you get to the proper venue, right, this is where you can let them have it. You know what I mean? You can let them have it because this is the venue for that. That's it. But that's what they're afraid of, us actually being in the proper venue. I mean, I'm not saying they are not compromised, but I've seen there's evidence of a lot of great results from the proper venue. There's evidence of people being railroaded, you know, and then there's evidence of people being railroaded and then it being reversed in the proper venue. So my thing is, you know, there's so much to it, but, you know, we're not trying to argue that that a baby should be eating steak. Like, it's not like they can't do that. Like, it's just not for them. So, you know, when this baby grows up and wants to follow due process of law, you have more than ample room to do that, because all your obligation is to do is to administrate this to the proper venue. Because a lot of times what they do is they start off at the municipal level and they try to bring the accusation there. But if they accuse somebody of a crime, what the municipal does, since they are inferior to another inferior, which is calling itself superior. Now follow me, I'm just going to break that down real brief. The superior courts of every so-called county are inferior courts. Never get that confused, because as we said before, but this is final call time, as been said, so let's just bring it back real quick. Superior is not supreme. There is no comparison versus something superior, like, because there's nothing above supreme. Now, granted, again, when the people really know, and I'm speaking of the true Americans, those who think they Negro, black, and colored, the true Al-Moroccans, Moors, right, continuously giving the European courtesy titles by calling them American. by calling them white, by saying that they themselves are black and things of that nature. Them, right? You understand that the political functions and work of your nationality, the mechanics, the internal function, that, as you were saying earlier, yes, we can have our own courts, and we should. We ought. It's something that's inherent with every nation. So I just want to say this, and I apologize, but just bringing it all back in, and I'm going to yield the floor with this. As we said earlier, it's going to have to be a divine national recognition to really work this as ought be. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that we should say our nationality is Turkish. Don't get me wrong. But I think that it's going to take some of our creed, because so-called Turks are Moors. So just let's keep that in perspective. I know we're Moors, we're Al-Moroccans, we're Americans, we are Asiatics. These are all appellations that certainly apply. But now let's look at the culture, right? Because we're talking about having, of course, our own decrees. What are muftis used for? Who are the chief protectors of the Islamic creed, right? We all agree and we recognize as Moors the greeting of Islam. But I just want to share this for all nobles out there, and I might not be telling you anything you don't know, but for those who don't know, let's just look at this as it relates to Moorish law, because the divine and national is too interrelated. So I just want to share the definition of fatwa, and this is out of page 635 of the Unabridged, just so you can reference for yourself. Webster's 1936 Unabridged, and under the definition of fatwa, it says it's a noun, comes from Arabic fatwa, a judicial decision, period. That's it. That's in the brackets. That's the etymology. A fatwa is a judicial decision. But remind you, this is Islamic. So it says in Turkish law right now, the Turks are the chief protectors of the Islamic creed, right? I'm just saying it's going to take a connection to knowing all of these things to really recognize the power that we have as the Aboriginals here in North America, as it correlates to the power that the family or the authority that our family all over the world has and exercises. But so a fatwa is a judicial decision in Turkish law, the written decision of a mufti. So don't say we don't relate. Don't say we don't correlate. Don't tell me you know about Noble Drew Ali, you've been in the Moor Science Temple, and you can't relate to the fact that a mufti has the authority for a judicial decision, a fatwa, in Islamic law, right? Because you look back at the treaty, these were Christians that were being dealt with between Moors. But Moors had their creed, and again, it's not to say when we say Islam, that's exclude Buddhism, etc. You know what I mean? But for that right now, I'm going to yield the floor because I will go into the time runs out. So I definitely want to get something, but pardon me so much. I yield the floor.
Well, Islam, that was great. And so much food for everybody to actually go and sit down and do some research on. But we have come to the conclusion of our time for this particular broadcast. So what I would like to say is, really this is a great discussion and it warrants being picked back up. So we'll have to see if maybe we can pick this up for maybe next Tuesday and discuss it a bit more, because like I said, that federal question, the Constitution, the issue of jurisdiction, actually diversity, and the constitutional protections for all people, it's a very serious issue. And, the great thing about it is that Constitution is here to protect everybody. So everybody better get familiar with it, because that is the federal question, Islam. So we shall see everyone on tomorrow for part 3 of what to say when the Department of Child Services knocks on your door, and I believe this week we're going to be specifically addressing alternatives to childbirth, and that will be a class that is conducted by Sister Amala, and she will be talking about, the duties and responsibilities of a doula, and if I'm not mistaken, that is the equivalent of a midwife, or midwifery. So make sure and tune in, check us out tomorrow, and peace and love to everyone.
She'll be discussing alternative child birth methods. Yeah. Mhm.
Yes.
Great. All right.
Peace and love.
Our problem is lack of knowledge and the intended deceit and trickery done, because even those who read the bibliotext that you call the Bible says he shall fool even the most believe. So even those who think they're highly educated in this and that, they've been fooled. That's it. It's not really complicated.
It's the miseducation of the Negro. Everybody knows it, to those who need to know. It's the miseducation of the Negro. When we rise from the dead, they call us Pharaoh. It's the miseducation of the Negro. Everybody knows it, to those who need to know. It's the miseducation of the Negro. When we rise from the dead, they call us Pharaoh. The gods are back, the Moors are strapped. We waking up, and we want our land back. Running off, that's a trap, you know them gods don't like that. Waking up from a nap, like where the hell my crown at? Take a step back, like I know this bitch ain't bite back. It's kinda crazy how this karma it strikes back. We enslaved Islam, so they slaved us right back. We called them niggas, then they nigga this right back. We brought them to light, but they ain't bring that right back. If I was lazy, dirty days and with the baby, then maybe, then just maybe won't revolt like Haiti. I too strong, Lord, but poor Marcus Garvey your ass. No, but you are leading God body demand. Now I ain't gotta be bad, and you ain't gotta be mad, but the planet is heating up, so the first I'll be last. I got that melanin that's better than anything you ever medicine. We at your front door, wonder why you never let us in. Oh, I get it, you never wanted to put some credits in. Well, just forget it, cause I don't know if you can edit sin. We've been enlightened long before Thomas Edison. Skeletons to prove that you wasn't even relevant. In the Caucasus Mountains, cause the sun was your deficit. Captain Caveman with the plan of the Jesuits. Check my bloodline, but in time I bring the evidence. Self-governing body, so I don't need no president. Democrat, Republican, donkey versus elephant. I studied in law, so I ain't down with none of that. I self-law in master, so I'm running that. This Molotov counter burns faster, so I like the match. Despite the fact that ain't even what I'm mad at. I spit the truth, so here's the roof, so you can hear that. My skin is brown and here's the proof, but you ain't hearing that. Dead in the eyes of the law, that's why they call you black. Naming all caps when you fall, that's why I strike back. And strike that from the record ab initio. You gon' need more than some pressure, I got a vicious flow. I can take the road to the high, or I can hit them low. Try to calcify my third eye, oh you gon' have to go. Chemtrails all over the sky, and you don't wanna know. Don't go inside of my tribe, they coming no more.
If you believe that your history started on a slave boat, I can guarantee you that's where it ended too. That's what I'm saying. Then, after saying that, and so believe me, go back and do some studies past the 1700s, and I'll guarantee you, sure as you're sitting there listening, or wherever you are, watching, listening, you will find nothing but the word Moor, and that's nothing. Because we work on black. That the description, maybe, blackamoor or whatever, but that's it. Know the difference between the description and an actual, person, place, or thing, noun. I mean, really.
It's the miseducation of the Negro. Everybody knows it, to those who need to know. It's the miseducation of the Negro. When we rise from the dead, they call us Pharaoh. It's the miseducation of the Negro. Everybody knows it, to those who need to know. It's the miseducation of the Negro. When we rise from the dead, they call us Pharaoh.
Hey, it's Flo, and this is my impression of a drill instructor directing a musical. Town hut! Get those tap heels in line and let me see those jazz hands! Are you bundling your home and auto insurance through Progressive? Can you hear me through those sequins?
Bundle your home and auto through Progressive and save.